how old are you?
60.
60.
Yeah.
You're still paying for a divorce. How does that work?
I don't play these games like John Bird. Where I'm 60. Shut up. What are you, a girl? Shut the up. You're 60. Be a goddamn man and say I'm 60 and be 60.
Hello, I'm Richard Dixon. Just kidding. This is Richard Dixon. Hey now.
Sorry, I dozed off during the intro. I wasn't paying attention.
It's a little lengthy. I mean,
whoa.
It's I think it's 59 seconds.
Yeah.
59 seconds
Thank God
of pure
it's not
entertainment.
60 seconds. That would be too long.
Yes, it would be. We've got standards here, and we're not doing 60 seconds.
Thank God.
Which,
Thank God.
This is, for the longest time, we were using just like a stinger, which was approximately like 5 seconds long.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, we need to beef that up. We need something that kind of shows who we are. And so we had Bird put something together, and it came out 60 seconds.
Don't you think people will figure out within the first couple of minutes of the show who you are? I mean, right before they turn away.
Yeah.
I think they'd probably figure it out. What you need is what we call the baby bear intro. The one that's just right. You had the one that was too short. You had the one that was too long. You need to get that down to about a good 20 seconds. Maybe 15, 20 seconds, you're good to go.
I agree.
This is Radio Consultancy 101. I'm here to help.
Well, this is why John Bird needs to be here, because
But he's not.
He's got to control. He was supposed to be here.
Because once again, John Bird has failed. His mouth has written a promise that his ass cannot cash. It's just...
He says his battery on his car died.
God bless him.
The car problems, man. I'm dealing with car problems right now as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a situation where mine's been sitting around for 3 weeks. I got a guy that was going to look at it, and he's supposed to call us today. But I don't know. That's what's if it weren't for being married, I'd be stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God my wife's got a car.
Thank God for Trish.
Thank God.
Yeah, she's made a man out of you.
Yes,
And
she
that
has.
Makes me very happy.
You want to seriously though? Like, I have, just in the span that I've known her, I have turned. I was not a man before I met her. Like, in all seriousness, like I was just kind of cruising through life and doing what I wanted to do, doing what I needed to do to get by, and now I'm like responsible. Now, granted, she rules with an iron fist, and she's a Dave Ramsey Nazi, but it is. I think it's benefited me greatly.
That's a good thing. I mean, if I had actually done anything reasonable, when you're young, you always think there's not enough money. You always think like, oh, geez, there's no way. I know I should be setting some amount of this aside for my retirement, but I can barely make ends meet. The reality is, when you look back on it now, you go, I always had money for pizza and cigarettes. I always had money for booze. I always had money for going out. Like, if you had just skipped out on 2 or 3 of those going outs, even a month, there's no telling how much money you could have put away. I will give the same advice to 20-year-olds, because I know you're all watching. I will give the same advice to 20-year-olds that I completely ignored when it was given to me at 20 years old, which is, take about 10% of that income every week, every 2 weeks, stash that away, put it in an account. It's a one-way account. The money only goes in. It does not come out. And when you reach a certain point, then you hand it to somebody and go, invest this for me, because the stock market, you can pick any 30-year period, and you will find that it goes up. And it doesn't matter what starting point, what ending point. You pick a 30-year period, it always ends higher than it starts. And there's one period literally where it's like a point. There's like a 1 point difference between from where it starts and where it ends, and it had to do with the Great Depression. But for the most part, you can count on a remarkable return on investment if you just take that little bit of money and set it aside. And you think you can't do without it? I'm here to tell you, as a guy who has to work up until lunch on the day of my funeral, put the money away. It's a good idea.
Welcome to Financial Advice with Richard Dixon.
I can tell you everything not to do.
You should get a Saturday show where you talk about financial stuff. The Money Guy, by the way.
Nobody has those. I don't think I've ever heard one of those.
Well, I'm sure we could fit an extra one in. Tony Gump's the Money Guy. You want to talk about where you should and shouldn't spend your money? Tony Gump's where it's at.
Don't go with what I say. You'll lose everything.
No, liar. He's lying.
Oh, no. I'm a perfect example of that because, when the stock market got all fluctuating, it was around 2000, and it was ratcheting up 400 points up, 400 points down, 600 points up, 500 points up. I mean, it was just crazy. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is making me insane. I decided to invest in land because they're not making any more of that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, right up until the property crash of 2008. And that's where, suddenly, out of the 3 houses I had, I short sold 2 of them. So, and then, I made the brilliant financial decision to get divorced. So that worked out really well for me.
Still paying for that?
Still paying for that. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you know why divorce is so expensive? Because it's worth it.
How old are you?
60.
60.
Yeah.
You're still paying for a divorce. How does that work?
I don't play these games like John Bird. I'm 60. Shut up. What are you, a girl? Shut the fuck up. You're 60. Be a goddamn man and say I'm 60 and be 60 with a dead battery. I'm just saying. Anyway.
There's things when it comes to John Bird, we just let them be.
We just let him go.
We've kind of learned. We've all got our parameters. We all got to treat like I'm a little bit of a drama queen. Tony Gump understands that. And so he's he works within my parameters.
Yeah.
I work within John Bird's parameters.
Me, on the other hand, practically perfect in every way.
Yes, of course.
It's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Which is why you're 60 years old and you're still paying for your divorce. How does
Still
that
paying
work?
for my divorce. Well, I got divorced in Florida, which was a brilliant move because they still have something called permanent alimony there. And when my daughter was born, we decided it would be a good idea if my wife quit her job, which she had always wanted to do anyway, and become a full-time wife and mother. And I don't regret that decision. It freed me up to really pursue the career and focus on a lot of stuff that needed to be done.
Went the Harrison Butker route.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Anyway, unfortunately, in Florida, when you get divorced, if they go, oh, you were her main source of subsistence for X number of years, well, you could have permanent alimony. So I had to negotiate that away.
That sounds awful.
It does, doesn't it?
That is not. That does.
And she's doing very well, by the way. The ex is she's a legal assistant or a legal secretary or paralegal. I'm not sure. She's one of those. She used to be a paralegal, but she regained the use of her legs. Anyway, she
Wait, what?
she works for one of these major law firms
in
another state, and she's doing just fine. She doesn't need my money.
But she's still taking it.
Oh yeah.
Does she have the option to end it and be like, hey,
I'm sure she could if she wanted to, but she's never going to. Let's not kid ourselves here. Let's not kid ourselves here. But you know what? Still, first check I write every 2 weeks. First check I write, and I always write it with a smile because it's like, I'm paying you so I don't have to talk to you, and it works out wonderfully.
So y'all don't conversate at all?
Nope.
Even with children together?
Nope.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, hey, look, I take a lot of responsibility for this. I mean, getting divorced, that's a two-way street, man. I mean, I was as big a problem as she was. I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, that was all horrible and I was a victim or whatever. I made a lot of really stupid decisions, and that's where we ended up. So,
You can't be a radio guy from the 90s with a successful marriage, I don't feel like.
Well, first off, I'm not a radio guy from the 90s. I'm a radio guy from the 80s, okay? Let's be clear on that. All the way back to 1984, which brings me to my next topic of conversation. Look, I just took over.
Yeah, it's fine
I'm
with
now
me.
in charge.
Hey, give me a break.
I told you off the air that I'm writing a book. And the reason for that is that last December 23rd, I hit my 40th anniversary of my first time being on the air solo.
Yeah.
And I thought, I've got like 40 years of radio stories backed up inside my brain. And pretty soon I did so many drugs in the 80s and 90s. They're going to be gone soon. So maybe I should start getting these things down on some sort of paper. And so I decided I was going to write a book. And even if nobody aside from my immediate family reads it, or only the people who really care about this sort of stuff, I thought, okay, this is a great way to spend your time. Sit down and clack out all of these ridiculous stories.
Yeah.
So I brought along a brief outline of some of the
Really?
fabulous stories, some of the chapter titles
Wow.
that I have here. And this is a fairly incomplete list. I thought, some years out of 40 years, some years 3 or 4 really amazing things happened. Some years nothing happened. But out of 40 years, you got to figure I could come up with 40 good stories. And if each one was only 5 or 6 or 7 pages long, you got a 200-page
Right.
book on your hands, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's marketable, maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't think I'm not popular enough to sell it based off my name, but maybe people see, hey, here's a story about some goofy shit that happened in radio. Maybe they'd be interested in reading. I don't know.
Well, you could definitely. I mean, it's very probable that you would be able to get a whole book's worth out of 40 years. First thing, if you want to be successful, here's my advice with this book: make a bunch of money. Have a chapter dedicated to trashing Donald Trump.
Okay.
You could make a cool
It's a good
couple
start.
mils.
Yeah.
I see it happen all the time.
Well, it worked for Michael Cohen.
Second is, when did you come up with the idea for the book? Because like you said, you mentioned it on this podcast like 6 or 7 months ago. Was that when you came up with it?
I don't
or-
know. I didn't mention it then. It wasn't until December 23rd that I actually
Oh.
I said, maybe I need to try to.
Well, am I just making
these
that
down?
up?
Yes,
Why
you
do
are.
I
You're
feel like
inventing
you've
it.
told me about this
You're
before.
inventing it out of whole cloth.
It didn't happen on this podcast.
I'm regularly told that I should I should come up with a cookbook because I talk about
Yeah,
food
yeah.
and cooking a lot. So this is actually a combination
Oh, so you do
of
it,
radio stories and recipes. Every story is matched with a recipe.
Are you sure you didn't talk about this on the last podcast?
I don't know. Maybe I did.
I think you did.
I-
I remember specifically you talking about your recipes and radio stories.
I think that was off the air. I think you and I had this conversation at a different
no.
time. But
Mainly the last podcast was him not being able to just stay with a woman, and he explained that, and there was other things too, but he didn't mention this.
Yeah, we should revisit that, by the way, because I talked about when I was doing my Mandu live read today. I was like, somebody texted in, and they're like, you need to see the difference in what you look like from the first Dixon interview to the second. This is not really an interview, but what the difference is in that 6, 7, 8 month span and how Mandu has done for you.
yeah,
So let's here we go. Tony Gump's got us a clip.
let's take a look.
Let's take a look
Let's
at
go to.
Andrew McLean 7 months ago or whatever it is.
That's me in relationships. I suck at this. I'm not doing anybody any favors. I'm going to stop doing it.
So are you saying that with relationships, it
I'm a
is
little more
you
chubby.
and
Yep.
not the other people?
Hell yes, it's me.
Okay.
Absolutely,
That's
it's me.
that's pretty big.
I
for
mean,
you to say that.
okay,
I mean,
it takes two to tango, no question about
Right.
it. And my ex-wife, was certainly problematic in her own way, but I have to take at least 50% responsibility in
Right.
those problems. I'm the one who married my own mother. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. You got to be careful with that. But yeah, it's 50-50. I think in order for you to not make the same mistake again, you got to realize what you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
You know.
And I'm terrible at it. I really am awful. I can't. I don't really see down the road that well. I can't quite figure out what's going on most of the time in my own life. So then you add another person, and you're like, yeah, now you should know what's going on with both of you. And I'm like, I'm so lost.
Well, listen.
Hey, did you ever have the moments where they couldn't figure out what to eat? Is that a common thing, or did you like?
Oh, that's still a thing. So, does all
Classic.
that advice still ring true
Absolutely.
today?
Yeah.
Nothing's changed.
I'm still 100% terminally single.
You look a little skinnier compared to that one. You look a little skinnier now.
Yeah, I am a little skinnier. I've tried to keep it between the lines. I fell off the wagon last weekend when I went to the beach and basically just ate whatever happened to cross my path, and then now we're back on track and bringing it back around again. But
Little way to wellness mixed in there.
love me some way to wellness.
Good stuff.
That is absolutely helps. Do you want to hear one of these stories or not?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Listen, I'll get
you are
so
the
distracted.
king of distraction.
I will
The
get
king
so
of distraction.
scrolled.
Okay, I'll give you some of the titles here, and you tell me which one you want to hear.
Okay.
Fake it till you make it, unless you never make it. Big Al and the Chili Cook-Off. Cheaters never prosper. Traveling blues. How to almost get the job of your dreams. The waiting is the hardest part. How I got my first job in radio.
Sounds like the list of Jumper plays a guitar.
It does, doesn't it? You're fired? No, you're rehired. Okay, pick one of those.
Let's go with.
Sounds like the wheel of segments.
What
What
was the one? Cheaters never win?
Cheaters never prosper.
Prosper.
Oh, this is a great
Yeah.
great tell. I love this. I went to work for this radio station. This is early in the career, so you don't actually get to, at that point, fly in for an interview. You get hired over the telephone.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. I had been fired from my previous job. That's another chapter. It was my first radio job, and I thought, well, I'm getting my firing out of the way right away.
Yeah.
Because they always say you're not in radio until you've been fired, right? So I go ahead and take this job. It's in the middle of the country. It's in a fairly small town, but it's farther up the totem pole than where I was, and it pays more than what I had been getting paid. Yay! I go there, and it's this dingy old building. The board looks like it had been built by an 8th grader with a Heath kit.
Nice.
Do kids still use Heath kits?
I don't know what that is. I'm just trying to play along.
A Heath kit used to be you'd buy it as an electronic thing. It was kind of like a model, but it was a working electronic thing. So you could make your own radio or stuff like that. And it really did. It
Gotcha.
looked like it was made by an 8th grader with a Heath kit. And we had a big blue transmitter right on the other side of the window that was probably giving us all cancer with its 100,000 watts that it was pumping out. Except it wasn't operating properly. Now, did you ever have to take transmitter readings?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I kind of know what.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what that
Back
means.
in the day, every 4 hours, you would have to go to the transmitter and actually write down what the gauges said. And the FCC had rules and regulations about where this thing was supposed to be. And if it wasn't within those guidelines, they could shut you down. They could take your license away until such time as you got up to speed. Well, this transmitter was really out of kilter. And the program director, who had nothing to do with my hiring, I got hired by the owner. The program director said, oh, yeah, you have to fake the transmitter readings. I said, I'm not going to do that. At the bottom of this form, there's a place where you sign. This is a federal form that goes to the FCC.
He said, put your name on it, cuzzy.
Yeah, you want me to sign this and date it? And I'm like, that's not going to happen. He's like, no, you have to. Everyone does it. I'm like, let's see how this plays out. So I'm writing down the actual transmitter readings, and the boss, the guy who owns the place, he's so passive-aggressive, he won't even come down and be like, you need to do this. He just keeps pressing the program director to come to me and go, will you please just fake the transmitter readings? And all the rest of us are doing it. I'm like, well, the rest of you are idiots. I'm not doing it. So I said, get the engineer to actually get this stuff where it's supposed to be. And he goes, the engineer owns a TV repair shop in town, okay? This is the extent of our engineer. He can barely fix the equipment that he fixes.
Yeah, we've all seen
So,
those.
yeah, he's not going to fix the transmitter. I'm like, well, then you're going to keep. I said, this guy's not going to fire me because I'll just go down to the regional FCC office and go, hey, you ought to check out this radio station over here that's way out of kilter.
You got the goods on him at this point.
Yeah, so he doesn't dare fire me. So I just keep writing this stuff down. Well, eventually they fire the TV repair guy and bring in an actual engineer. And one day, lo and behold, I show up and the transmitter readings are all right where they're supposed to be. And I was like, good golly, this is amazing. And I said, I guess the new guy brought everything up to speed. And the PD says, no, I overheard the conversation. He just rigged the meters so that they would show correctly. I was like, well, look, the thing is, I'm out of the picture now. I can, without fear, write down what these needles say. It's
Right.
not my fault if they rigged them, right? Eventually, he did actually get everything where it was supposed to be. That was just a stopgap measure to get him there. So I feel pretty good about that. But that's just the start. This is a guy who, in 1985, you were not even born yet?
Depends on what month.
It was March of 1985. Okay.
I was on the way.
March 21st, I believe, of 1985, every single music star in the galaxy got together and recorded We Are the World, okay? And they released it, I think, a month and a half later, okay? And we had a consultant at this point who was telling us what we should be playing. And this was the number one record. I mean, this thing debuted basically at number one, We Are the World. And every week, he would call me and tell me what the records we were supposed to be playing was, and I would tell the boss what they were, and he would go out and buy them and bring them back, and we would play them.
Wow.
Well, he comes back, and he's like, I can't find that We Are the World record. I'm like, well, I'm not surprised. It's a big hit.
What would you do? He just got to go to Walmart. I'm fascinated by the process
Yep.
here. Go to Walmart.
There wasn't a Walmart. This was a small town, and Walmart wasn't really a big thing yet. We had a kind of I don't know what you'd call it, a dry goods store that sold some 45s. We had a record store, and we had a Sears that had a very small record department. So he would go to the record store and buy the records. And he said, there is no We Are the World. And I was like, all right, well, we'll see. I was a little bit worried because this guy was a racist. And I don't mean he was kind of a racist. I mean he was really a racist. And so I was excited about working for him.
No wonder he couldn't do the readings himself. He couldn't see through the hood he was wearing.
It was so I thought, well, that couldn't be it. I mean, you know, we're playing all these other artists. We're playing Michael Jackson. We're playing Lionel Richie. They're both on this. There's no way that he's, you know. Second week comes and goes, still no record. The consultant is livid. He's like, what do you mean you're not playing it? I'm like, we're not playing it. The boss can't find it. There's no whatever. Week 3 shows up, and my midday guy walks in, and he's got 2 copies of it. I said, where'd you get those? He goes, I bought them at the record store. They got a bunch of them. I said, oh, really? Because the boss just told me earlier today that they're sold out and there aren't any. I said, give me that thing. And I put it on the turntable, and I played it, the next song, you know. I think we got about minute and a half in, and the boss comes in, kicks open the control room door. Where did you get that? I said, oh, Bradley found it at the record store. They got restocked. Isn't that great? And he's like, and he stormed off. I was like, this is hilarious. About 6 days later, he comes back in and he goes, can you believe that damn song is number 1? I was like, yeah, it only has every American music star worth anything on it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he was literally shocked that this song was number 1, and it had been almost from the day it was released. This is how far out of sync he was with his listeners. So flash forward, we become a rock station. And the guy who had been the sales manager demotes himself and becomes part-time. And we get a new sales manager who comes in and shakes things up, and he works out a deal where we're going to give away a car.
Wow.
Now, the biggest thing that we had ever given away on this radio station in the previous 4 years was a vacuum. This is a prize that sucked on many levels, okay?
Yes.
And this was the old sales manager who set it up. And he wanted this to be like the big summer promotion. Yeah, we'll have registration boxes. And I'm like, we're not doing that, Bob. We're not going to have people registering for a frickin' vacuum. No. We gave it away in like a week, and the less said about it, the better.
Was it a woman that ended up with it? Did you have any parameters on who could apply?
I got to be honest, I don't even remember.
Okay.
And I don't care. So
85 was a weird time.
We've got this car. It's a 1986 Chrysler Laser. Never mind that it's 1987.
Pull one of those up real quick, Tony.
And it's new. Yeah, see if you can find the 86 Chrysler Laser. A beautiful, beautiful vehicle. At least it was in 1986. But it was new. It was new. It was last year's model.
Okay, that's not a bad-looking car.
No, it pretty much is hideous by today's standards.
Looks a little Mustang-ish to me.
Yeah, looks like an old Mustang.
I'm pretty
convertible.
sure that's what they were shooting for.
Yeah.
So we do get registration boxes out at all these various places, and we send people to these stores, and we actually drive the car around from place to place, and people register at these places. And we're going to have this giant drawing at this oldies club. It was originally called Studebakers, but they got sued, so they had to change the name to Mr. Bakers. Nice job. And you had to be present to win. So here it's a Friday afternoon. I was the morning guy, so I'm a little exhausted. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we got everything together. We didn't have a promotions director. I was the promotions director. And everybody piles into this thing, and they're drinking and they're having a good time. We're going to do the drawing at 7 o'clock, and the afternoon guy's doing a show live on the premises, and we got this big blue barrel. I want to say it was a 55-gallon drum, but it probably wasn't. It was probably more like a 30-gallon drum, blue plastic, and it was full of registrations. I mean, people had come out in droves for this thing. It was, it stood yay high,
Right.
and it was light because they were paper, right?
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who want this.
A ton of people, and a ton of people in the place. It's starting to get sweaty, and we're getting real close, and everybody's drinking and having a good time. And I step out back to grab a smoke, and I see the boss's minivan back there, and it's him and the old sales manager sitting in the front seat. And I'm like, that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on with that? Finish my cigarette. I go back inside. I go have a beer, shooting the shit with some listeners, just hanging out. And I realize this blue barrel full of these entries is just sitting in the middle of the crowd. Like, somebody could do something to it.
Yeah.
Like, it dawns on me, I'm not bright, okay, but it suddenly dawns on me, like, I should go get this thing and put it in the back room or behind the bar or whatever, So I go to get it, and the boss is there. And he's messing around with the entries. And I'm like, I said, it looks like you and I had the same idea at the same time. He's like, what? Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. What was that? I'm like, we need to get this thing out of here. We can't have it sitting out in public where people can screw around with it. It's like, oh, yeah. I said, I'll go put it behind the bar, and I go back, and the bartendress, who I had a big crush on, goes, there's barely room back here for me. Just shove it in the back room. You ever been in a bar back room?
Yeah.
There's like empty kegs and boxes of booze and cocktail napkins and straws everywhere and maybe one small refrigerator, whatever. So I go back there and I reach in to stir these things around a little bit, and I see that there's an entry that's stuck up under the lip.
Here we go.
I thought it was just static electricity that was holding it there.
Yeah.
And I reach out to grab it. No, there was a loop of tape
Oh.
that had held it in place. And I pulled it out and I looked at it, and I didn't recognize the name. I didn't recognize the handwriting. I just tore it up and threw it away. I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe it.
Wait, you didn't look at the name?
I looked at it. I didn't recognize it.
Oh, you
I
didn't
know-
recognize whose name it was?
I didn't know whose name it was.
Okay.
But it was clearly put there by somebody.
Right.
And I had a sneaking suspicion who, since the boss had informed us he was going to be the one doing the drawing. So the time comes at 7 o'clock, and big ceremony. We bring out the barrel and walk it up and set it down, and here's the boss, and he's all like, these have been stirred around, haven't they? And I'm like, yes, absolutely.
He's very adamant about
Yeah.
making sure everybody
Make
knows.
sure everybody's.
we can
And he, by the way, it's funny because he wanted this big intro, and we introduced him, and they were, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm not going to give his name because I don't want to get sued.
And with him being the boss, like, does the people there know him, or
No.
he's not on
No,
air?
that's the
nothing?
funny thing is
my
that we
God.
introduced the guy,
Don't be that
Joe
guy.
Schmo, and he nothing, dead silence.
They're like, we don't care. We want our
Nobody
car.
cared. Yeah, he comes strolling up all in his plaid shirt and his seersucker pants, and he, these are all been stirred up, correct? Yes, they're all where they're supposed to be and whatever. And so he makes a big show. He does this shit, turns his head and reaches in this way, and he's reaching, and you can see his hand go around the lip of the thing. And it goes around a little further. I just need to mix these a little bit more. And then his head turns and he starts looking, and he realizes that piece of paper is not there any longer. And I'm not saying that panic set in, but I watched him go through all 5 stages of the Kubler-Ross grief scale, It was denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, all in about 6 or 7 seconds.
How long was he like stirring his hand around?
It felt like forever, but
Yeah.
I know it couldn't have been even 20 seconds.
Oh, man.
And he realized, it kind of dawned on him all at once, I'm standing in front of a crowd of people.
Yeah.
My rig job has gone south. I have to pull a name out. And so he did. He actually reached in and pulled a name out, and he announced that it was, in fact, a 40-year-old single mother from the back of the crowd who was chain smoking Marlboros.
And you were gonna say he pulled out the name. It was your name.
Yeah,
That would've
no,
been
she was delirious with joy and very excited about winning a car. And we had made sure that everyone knew you had to be 21 or over and had to have a driver's license. You ever seen a radio contest go south? I once watched our competition give away a car to a 14-year-old severely mentally disabled boy because they had made no rules or regulations about who could and who could not enter.
Wow.
And that was just kind of the radio nightmare there. So anyway, we had a couple of things that took place. The part-time sales manager left abruptly. He no longer worked for the radio station at that point.
I bet.
And that was where I just went I can't work here anymore. I have to go find another job. And that's another story for another time and a whole other chapter. But yeah, within 4 months I was gone after that because I was like, man, I'm working for a racist. I'm working for a guy who's trying to rig the transmitter readings. But this goes beyond the pale, that you were willing to attempt to screw up a radio contest, that listeners showed up and entered in good faith, people who cared about your radio station, and you were ready to rig that for a car?
A racist, a cheater, and a bold radio DJ walk into a bar. That's a good joke.
My
you could put in there.
question is, do you think he rigged it to not have to pay for the car and have a fake name, or do you think he was rigging it for somebody that he knew?
You had to be present to win, so it couldn't have been a fake name. It has to have been a real person that he had probably rigged it with, like a friend of his wife or somebody. I suspect. I don't think that the ex-sales manager would have been involved if he wasn't. It could have been like his granddaughter or something like that.
Or a friend where he's like, hey, this is a $10,000 car. If you give me $5,000, I'll make sure you win.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and most of the time, and I don't know that was the case with this, but most of the time when you have a giveaway like this, you can turn around and sell the car back to the dealership, and the dealership will give you cash for it. And that'll help because you got to pay taxes on that win. I mean, we had a similar situation when we were giving away a red Ford Explorer at the Galleria. It was tied in with Coca-Cola that summer at Rock 99, and we were giving away this. It was a beautiful red Explorer, but what you did is you had to win a key. And people would call in and win a key, and then we had people registering in places to win a key, and we gave away 99 keys. And people were going to show up at the Galleria. Everybody had to be there. We had a box of 99 keys, and you'd walk up and you'd pick up your key and you'd try it in the door because it was only one key. If it worked in the door, it worked in the ignition, right?
Right.
So you try it in the door, and if it didn't open the door, then you would throw it into a second box, and it was somebody else's turn. So we went through this one by one as these people walked up and picked up their key and tried it, and it didn't work. And got a little nervous as we started getting down there. And it's
I was
kind of
gonna
like,
say,
we've been through half these keys, and we don't. I mean, the big fear is like the second guy's going to win it, and it's going to be like all over, right?
And you've made it past that part.
Yeah. Oh, we're well past that. We're past halfway, and now we're at 2/3 of the way. And I'm just like, Jesus, what if somebody tried it and they didn't like jiggle it the right way or something? Now they're all throwing them into the second box. And many of these people, when they didn't win, they just wandered off.
Yeah.
They were just gone.
You don't know who had that key.
You're like, holy shit, what are we going to do? So anyway, as we dwindled down, and I'm the guy holding the box that they're taking the keys out of, my partner is holding the box that they're putting the keys in, and we get down, and it's 4 keys left, and it's 3 keys left. And
Oh,
like, we are
geez.
so screwed. There's 2 keys left. Last key, open the freaking door.
Wow.
Last key. You could not have planned it that way.
That's
if you
best
had
case scenario.
Tried.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, and sure enough, there was a guy from the dealership standing right there, and he goes, "Oh, congratulations! Hey, come over here. Listen, we'll buy that back from you for $24,000." And the guy sold him the car.
Wow.
I mean, given the opportunity of having either a brand new Explorer, which at the time went for about $24,000, on which you had to pay taxes, or collecting $24,000, some of which you could use to pay the taxes. Which one would you choose?
So what? So the interest. I'm trying to understand. The car dealer that was part of the giveaway said, "Hey, we'll just give you $24,000 and you give us the car back." Do they?
Yeah.
How did that benefit them?
Well, they had a car to sell. That was for starters. I don't understand what I'm not a car dealer. I don't know why they do that.
Yeah, that's weird.
I have no earthly idea.
Because
But-
you're out $24,000
Yeah.
as the car dealer.
Yeah. But they could probably turn around and sell it for 26 or 28
Yeah,
or something
I
like
guess.
that. I really don't. I don't know that end of the industry. All I know is that aside from that Chrysler Laser, which I didn't know anything about, every other vehicle I've ever given away on the radio has had a deal like that attached to it.
That's pretty wild to give away a car like we do. Well, we don't. You do. You give away concert tickets.
Yeah.
But I don't. I mean, in the history of 99.5, which is 8 years at this point.
Yep.
Has there ever been any kind of big giveaway outside of tickets to things?
Radio is not what it used to be.
Right.
I mean, we used to on Rock 99, we gave away 2 cars and a truck while I was only there for 5 years. We gave away 2 cars, a truck, a Jamaica vacation, a cruise.
Good Lord.
I mean, yeah, this was pretty common, and people were just throwing stuff at us. Here, give this away, give that away. It was
and it was
wonderful.
never because I was going to say, what's the benefit to the station outside of you may get some extra ears
You
come
develop,
in or
yeah,
whatever.
you get listeners. Absolutely.
But the radio station was never out any money on these giveaways. You were getting them from other companies.
You've been in radio for a while. If the radio station had to come up with any money, do you think we would have given anything away?
Nope.
Absolutely not. In fact, we are usually like, oh, you want us to give away your car? Well, you have to buy this much advertising for that to work. So, in other words, we're making them pay us to give away their car. That was pretty common.
We got to we actually just come up with things to give away just so we can play a game show on the air. Like one of our favorites is the John Bird Spelling Bee. And I'll give him a word. It's a simple word, but it may have a weird spelling. And the caller has to guess whether or not he gets it right 3 times in a row in order to win. And he'll get, 8 out of 10 wrong. But the callers have confidence in the guy, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's got that," and then, and then it goes on. But it's a lot of fun.
Like, what do you give away?
I mean, like locks of my hair when I cut my hair, maybe.
I think you're safe as long as it's under $600. You don't have to claim it as income if you win something.
I believe that is correct.
Well, maybe my hair's worth a bunch of money. Who knows?
Yeah, I actually know a guy that he won an RV on The Price is Right, and he never even got to drive it. He had to sell it right away just so he could pay the taxes, like Richard's talking about.
I got some friends that were on The Price is Right, and they had this. They didn't win a car; they won a necklace. But it was kind of like, oh, okay, that's a lot of money that we owe somebody now.
That's crazy.
Thanks for nothing.
But
look, in talk radio, it's a different story. And talk radio is wonderful for this reason. People don't tune in to win stuff. They tune in because they want to hear what you have to say.
Right.
They listen to Andrew McLean. They listen to Leland Whaley. They sometimes listen to Dale Jackson. They listen to Dixon and Vining. They're actually here for the content. I always said, I did a remote at it was a boat dealer. They're not even in business anymore, but they sold tracker boats, which are now sold at Bass Pro Shop, right? This was a tracker dealership that was in Bessemer, and they were having this big, it was at the Walmart down there on Lakeshore, so not very far away from, our radio station. And they had all these boats there, and they had me broadcasting live. This was back when I was 1070 AM. And we had, people wandering by, a few people came up, and it was a weekday afternoon, and this sales girl says, well, you're not really drawing much of a crowd. I said, that's not how talk radio works. I don't know if you know this or not, but
you're like, bitch, I'll slap you.
When you're dealing with music radio or country, rock, whatever it may be, even today's hits, and you're giving away pizza. Oh yeah, you'll get a car full of people and their family will show up and they'll all be like shoveling pizza into their faces and oh, this is great, and walk around and get their greasy hands all over the boats, and then they'll pile back into their car and leave. The thing about talk radio listeners is they're like, hey, Richard Dixon or Andrew McLean or whoever's broadcasting at this place. I'd love to go see him, but I got to go to the bank and I got to get to the dry cleaners by 4, and then I got to pick up my kid from soccer practice. These are responsible freaking adults.
Yeah.
They're not going to just suddenly stop by and eat some pizza. So she was like, well, Rick and Bubba were here yesterday, and they had people everywhere. They were filling the place up. And I happen to know the guy who owned the place. I said, hey, let me ask you something. How many boats did you guys sell yesterday at this thing? He goes, none. I said, how many have you sold since I've been here? He goes, 2. I looked at the sales girl. I said, "That's the difference.
That's the difference.
That's
buddy.
the difference between talk radio listeners actually have the money to be able to afford buying boats. I'm not saying Rick and Bubba listeners don't. I'm just saying that we're more of a sure bet when it comes to that kind of thing.
That's actually true, and it's been one thing that was just fascinating to me when it comes to being at 99.5. My first two radio jobs, I didn't really have any advertisers, so I didn't have anything to go off of. But since coming here, like when we've partnered up with businesses on our show, and I think to myself, well, what this business provides is a pretty big project, which means it's expensive
Sure.
or whatever. I was like, I'm not going to find anybody in this audience that, is going to be willing to take my advice and then spend that kind of money. And I've been shocked by the response that all of our guys get. I mean, they get a ton of business. And I'm like, this audience is 99.5 audience is different. And like you said, talk radio as well.
Well,
but
they're listening to you, and that shows that they have very poor judgment.
yes.
So obviously they're willing
Waste
to do
that
almost
money, baby.
anything, just throw it away.
Throw it away.
No, our listeners are over the mountain. They tend to make $100,000 a year or more. They have one or no children at home. And until you experience this, and you will when P. Diddy leaves, and you'll find that moment, and you'll be like sad that your kid is gone. But then at one moment, you look around and go, where'd all this money come from?
Yeah.
For real. You're no longer throwing it into your child's mouth on a regular basis or
Right.
into whatever their latest hobby or habit is, and most people decide that at that point they're finally going to do with their house what they want to. Oh, we can have the floors redone from where the kid wrote his trike all over it, 12, 14 years ago. He's out of the house. Now we can get we'll get the floors that we want, or the painting company will come out and paint the place and do it the way we want. We'll get new HVAC. We'll put a pool in. Suddenly you have the money and you have the time to do the stuff you want. That's why our listeners are able to do that.
It's just amazing to me with, how my life has gone and how I am now. We're kind of, the Beavis and Butthead of conservative talk radio. I think somebody's
Which one do you
analyzed
think
this.
you are?
Probably, I think I've always viewed Butthead as the leader of the duo.
Mm-hmm. So you're Beavis. Gotcha.
And then
And that's
I think Judd Bird's definitely a ringer for Beavis. But to know that well-off, responsible people are listening to what I have to say is still to this day fascinating to me.
I'm constantly shocked.
I am.
Constantly shocked by the people who not only listen but come up to you later and go like, hey, you run across somebody in line at the grocery store. Hey, what do you think about this or that? And I'm like, you want my opinion on something?
All right.
I'm the third most important person in my home.
Right.
And I have 2 dogs. So I find it a little bit difficult to believe that people, but look, one of the biggest problems we have with social media, and you ran across it earlier today. I heard you talking to the guy who's got the X account that has 17 followers.
Right.
Right. What is it? The Seminar Caller?
Yeah,
Let's
Seminar
give him
Caller.
a quick plug. Check out the Seminar Caller, kids. 17 fans.
Get this man to 20 followers.
And he calls radio stations and records it and thinks it's just hilarious that he's trying to punk you or troll you or whatever it is. I didn't hear the actual call. I just heard you referring to what it was all about. And the big crime that social media created is giving the impression that everyone's opinion has the same weight.
Right.
And the fact is it doesn't. My opinion is far more important than anyone else's. Because it's an educated opinion.
Right. Oh, yeah.
We actually research what we're talking about. Bill Maher made a fantastic point the other day when he was talking about the Travis, what's his name? Harrison Bucker thing.
Buckner, yeah.
Buckner, yeah. He said, I don't see the crime here. He's advocating for, hey, get married, have some kids. That might bring you happiness. And he says these college kids are all bent out of shape about this. And yet they're out there on the quad protesting for Hamas, where that's not a suggestion. It's the law. If you are a woman, you're going to get married and you're going to have kids, and that's just the way it is. And you don't get to decide not to. It's like, how in the world can you be upset about maybe you should do this and protest on behalf of you have to do this.
Right.
This is the uneducated idiots that we're raising in America today, and it's a cause for concern.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But I agree with you 100%. Like, social media has gotten people to where they think that people should be forced to hear their opinions.
Yeah.
And one thing that drives me crazy is people arguing back and forth on social media. We'll always get comments about, you was talking about Del Jackson earlier. Somebody called me today and said Del Jackson was the acne bump of Talk 99.5, and he was glad I was doing a show. But, that happens no matter who's on whose show or whatever. But you see people, and I'll see them on my page, and they'll take shots at the show, or they'll say something about you love Trump too much or whatever, and then it will spiral into other people jumping in, and then they're arguing, and then you got a whole thread of people arguing. What does that do for people? There's some sort of psychological thing where they're like, I've got to get involved in this, and I've got to put a stop to this person's opinion. It's fine. I mean, you got the right to do it. I don't even respond to people on social media anymore.
Nope. I've done the same thing. Look, you and I have 4 hours, half of 4 hours anyway, because Valerie's got the other half, and you have 3 hours. So we get our catharsis.
Right.
We get to go on and say the things that we want to say, which is why I don't feel inclined. I'll sometimes respond to somebody and go, wow, let me educate you on why you're so far wrong on this. And then they'll respond with like, yeah, nasty, cocky, poo-poo head, stupid, whatever. And I'm just like, I'm done. I'm not, there's no point. No one has ever had their mind changed by an argument on Facebook or X or Insta or any of those
things. The gram, as we call it.
The gram. I love the gram. No, no one has ever had their opinion changed by anything that's taken place on those platforms. So forget it.
It's such a waste of time.
Everybody needs to lighten the fuck up. I swear to God, I have never in my life seen people so on edge and so ready to do battle over stuff, even stuff that they're so very wrong about. I mean, a friend of mine died in the wool liberal. Still love the man to death. Will never not love the man. He talked about. He put a post up the other day about how I can't believe that they're banning books. They won't ban these guns, but they're banning books. And I mean, every fiber of my being cried out to be like, explain which books are banned.
Yeah,
because there's no book in America that you can't buy. You can buy it online at Amazon. You can buy it at Barnes & Noble. You can find another place online where you can buy it. It not being in the library, well, there's a finite number of books in any library. You have to make a decision about what books you're going to put in there, and certainly you want the ones that are going to get checked out the most to be in your library. School libraries have to make their own decisions about what's acceptable and what isn't for whatever age range you're in. So not putting books in those areas is not banning them. It's just saying we're not going to carry those books in these particular areas. But they're certainly 100% available in America. So when I hear ignoramuses say things like, I can't, but they're banning all these books, I'm just like, this is the problem with social media. Everybody's opinion carries the same weight, even stupid people who don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's just trigger words. It's stuff that they hear it on TV. They hear it on, whoever's show, Rachel Maddow or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, they're banning books, and then that just sticks with them. They just run with that. They'll see other people on Twitter or whatever confirm, they're banning books. And so instead of actually looking into it and say, what books are you banning, they just stick with that narrative.
Yep.
And other people are saying it, so it just confirms what they were told and everything. It spirals out of control. But we know people like that all over the place.
You come from an era where you've known social media and computers most of your life. Mm-hmm. It's been around for a long time. Like my daughter didn't have to take typing classes. She's 29. She learned how to type at 3 because that's how you got on the computer.
Typing classes.
Yeah. We used to have typing classes. They were taught, by the way, by the football coach. Because he had to have, a second job.
Right, yeah.
He had in order to be the coach, he also had to work at the school. So he taught both typing and generally driver's ed. Those were the two things. Nonetheless, I come from a time that precedes all of that by a long shot. I was 32 before I bought my first computer.
Man,
I know.
Almost my age.
I always said I'm not going to buy one until they get so easy that I can just be like, computer, turn on. And we almost got to that point. It was basically, I think Windows 95 was the very first operating system that I had. But we always thought, I swear to God, we always believed that if you had a device in your pocket that could connect you to the entire world and that we could all talk to each other on a consistent and regular basis, and that every piece of information imaginable was at your fingertips 24 hours a day, that would bring peace and sanity to the human race. And it has been the exact opposite.
We really effed that up.
Yeah, we have gone. This is why, and you wonder, gee, Richard, how come you use social media mostly for looking at cat videos and memes? That's why. Because there's just nothing good in there.
Do you get a lot of cat videos in your feed?
Well, it's based on an algorithm, so
Right.
yeah. When I stop and look at the puppies, the algorithm says, "Oh, he really likes puppies," and so I get fed more puppies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I look at a lot of cat and dog videos because they calm me down. And like I said, no one's ever won an argument on social media ever.
I got to be honest. I'm with you on the cat videos. I'm trying to find my reels real quick. And let's see. Let's go to videos, reels, and see how long it takes me to get to a cat video.
I do remember typing class. That was actually kind of fun for me. I was a fast typer, so it's fun when you're fast at it. If you suck, it's got to really be bad. You know?
I never took a typing class. I learned myself. I actually read a book, a very short little pamphlet on put your hands here and figure this out. And then you type enough and you just start to be able to do it by touch, and you don't have to look at the keys while you're doing it.
Okay, it finally got me to a cat video.
How long did that take?
20 swipes.
That's too far.
Yeah, I know.
That's too long.
I
You need more
feel
cat
like,
videos in your life, my
I
friend.
feel like I've got a lot of cat videos because I'm a cat guy. I've got I've got two cats.
Yeah, George
Floyd and Ellie are my
Nice.
two cats.
Very nice.
And George is he's a little bit much because he does a lot of yelling. As if he wants something, but I think he's just yelling to yell.
He wants you to get off his neck. That's what he
He's
wants.
like,
That's what he's doing.
that's what he sounds like too.
Chances are good he does have something in mind that he wants. He just can't articulate it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I mean, you could give him some food and he'll shut up for a minute, but then there's one thing in particular with Trish works from home. She will wear she's gonna wear a headset. She's talking to clients and everything. And every time she starts talking on that headset, that's when it starts. And he'll do it the whole time while she's talking. So it's almost as if he doesn't like her talking on the headset.
How dare you speak to someone other than me?
Right.
Who do you think you are?
It's just, man, it's
Like
over
a
the
spoiled
top.
child, yes.
And so, she's working and in the background, clients are like, what is that?
Who's torturing a cat at your place?
It's George Floyd, ma'am. Calm down. Just George Floyd. She should totally say that. But yeah, I like cats. I like dogs. I like animals. We did a story on the Wheel of Segments today about an emotional support goose.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I prefer animals to people 100% of the time.
Would you, if you had an emotional support animal, what would it be?
A dog. I do have emotional support animals. I have two of them.
Say no dog, no cat.
Oh, jeez.
It's got to be like something from the zoo.
Something from the zoo.
Yeah.
Okay, but it can't be a cheetah, an ocelot.
It can if you want it to be. You know what I mean?
I'm going to go with a lemur.
A lemur's a good one.
Yeah. That I got to see some at Busch Gardens. No, I'm sorry. It was a tiger rescue place down in Tampa. The one that's run by Carol Baskin.
Really?
Yeah, no kidding. I actually got to meet her.
That's kinda
long
cool.
before Tiger King ever came along. But yeah, meerkats, not meerkats, but lemurs, they have these little round cages that they keep them in, and they sit on their little perches and they go, woo, woo. I'm like, I could live with that.
You
all
think
day.
you think that could cause you to be emotionally stable if you
think-
had one of
yeah.
those?
I mean, Nothing else has worked so far.
That's true.
So why not try that?
Tony Gump, I just sent you. I sent you the story about the emotional support goose. The reason I want to bring this up is when I did it on the show, AJ was producing, and we played the age-old game that he and Leland plays called "Your People or My People."
Yes.
Where he's white people or black people. And I read the headline, which was "Woman Battling City Over Emotional Support," and then AJ stopped me. He goes, "Your people."
Yeah.
I said,
Black people don't have emotional support anything.
They do not. It's not a thing. But white people do. And if this lady's not just white, she's like, every white stereotype you can think of.
Yep.
She's got it going on.
White girl problems.
Watch this. This is good.
A battle is brewing in the Lucas County town of Sheraton over an animal whose owner says is more than a pet.
KCCI's Marcus McIntosh went there today and spoke with the family, hoping to keep its goose in their flock.
We are in the 1200 block of Braden Avenue in Sheraton, where homeowner Angel Queener says she is fighting with the city to keep her emotional support animal. It's not a typical emotional support animal because her support animal is a goose. Queener bought her goose Blue as a pet about 14 months ago, but he's
only had it 14 months.
So much more.
He's the light of my day. Every morning when I wake up and I see his face, it just makes my day 1,000 times better. I mean,
This woman needs to get laid.
Oh, man.
he has helped me so much.
The problem, geese are prohibited in Sheraton according to municipal code. Queener showed us documentation from her medical team addressing her need for an emotional support animal, given her list
See
of
her
mental
earrings.
health disorders.
PTSD,
Yikes.
bipolar, ADHD, borderline personality disorder, generalized anxiety disorder,
Oh, my God.
agoraphobia, obsessive compulsive tendencies.
Queener, a recovering drug addict, 4 years sober, says she had suicidal thoughts and thoughts to use again
Oh, man.
until Blue entered her life.
Once I got Blue, he saved me from that. I've still remained clean.
Queener's now fighting to
Once I got
officially
Blue,
register
he
Blue as
actually
an
ate my
emotional
crack,
support
and I
animal.
wasn't able to get high.
Keep Angel and Blue from having to fly the coop.
I would sell my house and move. I can't get rid of.
All right. I would suggest
We
you do
went
that
to
then.
Sheraton City Hall and were told no decision had been made and they would not be commenting. I reached out to the city attorney for comment about the
Okay.
issue.
Enough of that. Enough of this white people stuff.
Well, but you bring up a good point. It's not just about, white people and emotional support animals. White people do have all of these problems that a lot of the rest of the world doesn't suffer from. And things like depression and generalized anxiety disorder and stuff like that, that's a lot of it.
She's got a whole list.
I know. Well, you struggle with some of this stuff too. You know what that means? And I also I have I get anxiety, and I've been much better about it this year so far. I've yet to really have an anxiety attack. But what that means is you're not worried about food, you're not worried about shelter, you're not worried about transportation, you're not really worried about money. You've got all the major things in your life taken care of, so you can be concerned about this stupid shit over here. And that's how you end up with things like, guess where there's no depression? Haiti, where they're busy trying to figure out where their next meal is coming from.
Yeah, and stay away from the gangs.
And how to keep their house together, next time the wind blows strongly.
That's a good point.
Stuff like that.
Because, if I look back, I often look back to, say 10 years ago, and I had plenty of problems. I had money problems. I had things, you're trying to figure out, how you're going to pay your bills that are 2 months behind, car problems, everything else. Like, you were just, back when I was just trying to get by day to day, I didn't have anxiety. I didn't have panic attacks. And that was always bizarre to me. And that I've got them now when things are much more stable. So that would actually lend itself to logic. I mean,
listen to Uncle Richard. He knows what he's talking
but yeah, it
about.
also makes me nervous to take your advice. So I don't know.
I might turn out like him.
Yeah, I don't
Nobody
wanna do
wants that.
Do not want to be doing that. I'll
I
be
can't
paying
blame you.
alimony till I'm 80 years
That's
old.
exactly right.
Don't wanna
not
do that.
blame you for that, my friend.
Anyway, the reason we brought you on is we wanted to get everybody ready for the Jawbone Jam.
Yeah, man.
We're calling this the Jawbone Series, and hopefully we can get on the rest of the guys, Valerie, Who else do we work
Leland?
with? Leland,
I
yes.
want to get to Leland.
Leland and everybody else.
Chubb Father could feasibly stop by. Maybe
Yep.
he's going to be there with his food truck.
Got to be back
got-
in the house.
Got Uncle G's Pizza coming by. I love that stuff. Detroit-style pizza. Good stuff.
What are you doing at the Jawbone Jam? What is your role?
Well, first off, I'm coordinating most of it, which is taking up a lot of my day. I took time out of my busy schedule putting it together to come here. You should consider yourself
about
blessed.
that?
But also, as part of John Bird Plays the Guitar, I'm going to pop in for a minute with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then my band, the Cash Domino Killers, is going to be playing, and I'll be playing drums with them as usual and singing backup. We also have Leland playing with Greenleaf Hustle, which is a cool little band. They played almost 4 years ago at our Jawbone Jam, I want to say. I think it was 4 years ago.
You talking about Turd Ferguson? That one?
No. This is a different group. This is
some of the same guys?
No.
No.
Well, there might be one of the same guys
Yeah.
in there. And then, we've got you doing the Wheel of Segments. We got Dale Jackson doing a live 10 with him. And it's going to be awesome. There's going to be music. There's going to be entertainment. There's going to be laughter. There's going to be joy and happiness and no more sorrow and no more pain.
I kind of like the idea that we're at this venue, which you did three years ago,
Yeah.
I guess. That was the Jawbone Jam before I came on board,
That's
but
right.
I was there for
You
that
were there.
one.
You stopped by, as I recall.
I like this venue better than I like Iron City, I think. I think it's more intimate.
They're both
it's-
great. I mean, I'm not going to pick on either one of them. I love Siluri. I love Danny Sample over there. It's an outdoor venue.
Yeah, I like that.
I love the fact that this is on a Friday night, the 21st of June. Let's
That's
get
big.
that in there because it means I don't have to wake up early the next day. And, we can play a little later into the evening. We don't have to, wrap everything up by 9:30 so everyone can go home and go to bed. If we feel like, keeping on playing past 10, we can do that.
How long do you think we would, and we'll just say for you morning show people, how long do you legit think you could stick it out for Jawbone Jam?
Once the adrenaline kicks in, we'll probably we can make it past 10 easy. I mean, I still have to
11?
help pack everything up
11?
at the end. Yeah, so I mean 11:30 is when we'll be leaving.
1 a.m.?
No, I'm not going to make it to that. That's not going to happen.
I mean, you've done it before.
I have.
How long ago has it been since you've been out till 1 a.m.?
God, how long ago was it? It was before Talk 99.5 started for sure. I was at a bar, and I
this is about to
remember
get good.
at some point I'd been playing darts and having a good time and drinking a variety of different cocktails, which is never a good idea, by the way. And suddenly the lights came on, and I was like, "Shit! Is there a fire? What's going on? What?" It was 2 a.m. It was last call.
Wow.
Last call was over. They were shutting down. Yeah. And I was just like, I can't believe I'm this old, and I was over 50. So it was certainly within the last 10
Man.
years. Yeah. I was just like, I can't believe that it's 2 a.m. and I'm still up and I'm still at a bar, and it was pretty freaky.
That's hard. I've gotten to the point where I just we had some friends come in from out of town over the weekend. And originally, I was like, let's meet up with you guys in Birmingham in the evening, 6, 7 o'clock. We'll go do a few things and hang out at night. And Trish and I were talking about it. I'm like, wouldn't you rather be home, once nighttime comes around?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? That's a good point. So we moved it up and met him at 3 or 4 o'clock and hung out with him until 6 or 7. And it was just, I had the realization that I don't even like going out anymore. And I mean, it's not a bad thing if that's what you want to do, but I'm not at 40 yet, and I want nothing to do with being out at night. I just don't. I've lost all interest in it.
You do get a resurgence later.
Really?
It comes back around again. As you approach 50, you'll be a little bit more like, hey, yeah, this is fun. I forgot how much I enjoyed this.
Yeah.
But you don't do it very often. You do it every once in a while. One of the reasons why it's more fun is that you have more money, and you're able to do the things that you want to do and go the places that you want to go. But look, the old saying, when I was a kid, I had to be in bed by 9 every night, and I couldn't wait until I could pick my own bedtime. Now I get to pick my own bedtime. Turns out it's 9.
Yeah.
That's basically true of most people. There are night owls. There are people who'll stay up till 2 no matter what. I mean, John Bird will regularly do stuff at 2 o'clock in the morning and send it to me.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about that. I don't know what that is. I don't want to know what that is.
But for the most part, when I was working your shift, when I was on between, it's not a shift, it's a show.
So yes, it's a show.
But yeah, when I was on from 11 to 2, I was still going to bed before 10 or about 10, and I would generally wake up 7. I was getting a good 9 hours of sleep a night. It was wonderful.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
It was a beautiful thing. Enjoy it while you can, because once I leave for Nashville, they're moving you up to mornings.
God.
I'm never leaving for Nashville.
Please don't. Yeah, I'm usually 10 o'clock. Trish has to kind of push me to bed because she wants to sleep, or she wants to get in bed earlier than I do, but I try to, time it up. I'll get up at 7, and I'll get out of the bed at 8. Like I wake up at 7.
Oh, yeah. I used to do that, too.
I'd
I'd pick up my phone first thing, and I could scroll through. I could handle all my email. I could do everything I needed to do on my phone before I got out of a prone position.
Yeah,
And
you do a little show prep while you're there.
Yeah, easily lay in bed for an hour and then go like, all right, I guess I better go do something, and finally drag yourself out of bed. You're living my old life, damn it.
I am. It's a lot of fun, actually. So tell me this. When would you get to the station when you were doing 11 to 2?
Well, I would always stop and call on various clients, because I, unlike some people, had a lot of live endorsement spots on my show.
Yeah.
So I would...
Yeah, whoever that guy is.
I would, try to make sure that everybody was happy and satisfied, and I would swing by and see them and talk to them and whatever. And if I could help get new ones, which I still do today, regularly the sales department will be like, hey, we got a meeting with this guy. And I'm like, I will be there, whatever it is we need to do to separate them from their money and immediately begin bringing them more clients. I mean, obviously that's what we want.
Right.
And so, yeah, I would probably blow out of my house. By 8, I was in the shower. I was never really a breakfast guy. So I'd be in the shower. I'd be out the door by 8:30. I'd be at my first meeting of any kind by 9. And I would be at work. At first, I didn't start till noon. I was on noon till 3, So I could actually come rolling in at about 11 and sit down and do show prep from 11 to noon, and then do noon to 3. And then at 3, I'd make 1 or 2 stops on the way home, and then I'd be done for the day.
Yeah, I'm nothing like you. I get to the station at 10:57 ish.
Yeah,
and get up in there.
That works right up until you're late.
Yeah.
The day you're late, then you get a talking to by Miss Valerie, who says, we'd really like you to be here at least a half an hour before your show.
I know. I'm very careful about it. I'm very adamant about checking traffic before I leave.
That's
and everything
important.
else. Now, granted, I don't check traffic until I'm in the car and on the way, so
that's not helping.
No, but I do have several routes to get to work from where I'm at, so that helps some. But yeah, there's been some close calls. The problem is it's just such a because you're in the middle of the day, you've got several things that have happened either overnight or that are happening in the moment. And literally a story or part of a story could change the entire dynamic of how my show's going to look.
Yep.
And it's like I'm going to have to wipe the slate clean and start over. I've gotten to a point where I wouldn't say most days, but several days I have to take half a Xanax just from the stress of getting out the door in time.
If you're taking half a Xanax now, wait until things really take off.
Yeah.
You're going to have a great time with that.
I'm probably going to take a Xanax before I have to do the Will segments on the stage.
Don't become dependent on that stuff, by the way.
No, I will not. I actually don't like it. I just it's break glass in case of an emergency. My doctor actually told me I should be taking more of them, and I was like, I don't like the way it makes me feel, so...
I had a grandmother-in-law who was completely addicted to this stuff, and she was on so much of it. She was in her 80s, and I think she had gotten like a bunch of prescriptions from a bunch of different people and was getting them all filled with Medicare and whatever. And finally, in an effort to straighten her out, my father-in-law took her to another doctor and was like, we need to get this fixed. She's out of her mind half the time. And the doctor was like, she's 84? just leave it.
Leave her
just
be.
Just let it go, you know. But yeah, you don't want to get too far down that road. I've got
No.
Klonopin, and I'm in the same situation. I have not taken any so far this year.
That's good.
I'm pretty excited about that because for a while there, I was kind of like I was popping 1 or 2 every other night, and I was just like, this has got to stop. I got to get my act together. I can't live
1 or
this
2
way.
every other night.
Yeah,
Well, that's not very much.
seemed like a lot to me. Seemed
Seems
like a lot
you
to
had
me.
it together. I mean, that's not a bad deal. I will, however, I planned on, I got to do this stand-up comedy deal
Yeah,
Sunday, which I completely dread.
and this is over. This is in Trussville, right?
Yes, at Velma's.
Velma's.
You should come, even though you have to work that morning.
What time does this thing start?
7
Okay.
p.m.
And you're going to be on stage when?
I'm trying to go first. Like I'm trying to get him to do John Bird and then myself to be the first 2 acts. And it's only like a 5-minute set. Like the time limit is 5 minutes. I'm sure Bird's gonna have some jokes and stuff. I'm just gonna tell a story. Like I'm not a comedian. I'm a radio guy. I'm just paying up on a bet.
You'll know that I'm there when you hear, "Boo! You suck!
Yep.
Get off the stage, loser!"
I feel like you could do that though, like a stand-up comedy deal.
I was a stand-up comic. For a while.
Really?
Yes. I was terrible at it.
Why don't you try the try one of these with us?
I don't want to.
Come on.
No, it is nerve-wracking to be sure, but here's why I don't do it anymore and why I stopped doing it entirely. The way that you get good at doing stand-up, and every comic who's ever made it will tell you this. You start with 20 minutes worth of material, and you go on stage, and 90% of it sucks. You've got literally 2 to 3 minutes of good stuff there. What you have to do is hold on to that 2 to 3 and come up with another 12 or 14. And out of that 12 or 14, you may have another 2 minutes that's good. Well, great. Now you've got 4 to 5 minutes of good stuff, and you have to polish that.
Yeah.
And going up on stage and doing the same thing over and over and over again, it's not for me. It's not my thing. I love the freshness of radio. Every day you go on, Valerie says something, I get to respond to it in a very rude and horrible manner, and the look of shock on her face brings me great joy, and I know that listeners are thinking the same thing. There's a great scene in, have you seen the movie Elvis?
No.
Okay, you suck.
I don't watch movies.
Have you seen it, Tony?
I have not seen that one.
You suck. That's what Dick said.
That's exactly right. You both suck. There's a scene in there where Tom Hanks is playing Colonel Tom Parker, and he's seeing Elvis for the first time on stage at the Louisiana Hayride, right? And this girl is just screaming. She's trembling. She's like overcome by emotion because the beginning of rock and roll was a pretty big, explosive thing.
Right.
If you weren't there for it, you can't understand it. I wasn't there for it, but I kind of get it. And he said something about the girl, this stifling, the fact that she was putting her hand over her mouth and that it was an emotion that she was overcome by that she knew she shouldn't be feeling. And that's what made it work so well. That was the explosiveness of rock and roll. And that's the laugh that I'm going for. I'm always going for the laugh where you go, ha, I should not be laughing at that.
Yes.
If I could get that laugh, my morning is a success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we try to do that.
Because laughing is an involuntary thing. You know, when something funny happens, you don't choose to laugh or not laugh. You either laugh uncontrollably or you don't. And that's the great thing about humor is that it's the great emancipator. You find what you find funny, and a lot of times it's stuff that you know intellectually you should not be laughing at. I mean, I laughed hysterically at the Jeff Daniels toilet scene in Dumb and Dumber. And the whole time I was laughing and tears coming out of my eyes, I was like, you're better than this, Richard. You should not be laughing at this.
Yeah, there are certain things, and thank God for comedians like this. They're really taking over the line, no pun intended, but like really, really skirt the line on some of the jokes that would get you canceled, but they get by with it because they're comedians. And then when you're laughing at it, you're like, man, if somebody saw me laughing at this, like I would get canceled.
Jimmy Carr's got a new stand-up special called Serial Killer, I think it's called, or I think something like that anyway. It's Natural born killer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jimmy Carr is one of the foulest, scariest, wrongest comedians out there, and he's hysterical.
Who's your favorite comedian, Tony Gump?
George Carlin.
That's a good one. What about yours, Dixon? Like, who would, if you picked one all-time
Maybe Dave
comedian?
Chappelle, too. But George
I would go Dave Chappelle for sure.
It's very tough to beat George Carlin because he was a writer. He would write his bits out entirely from start to finish and then memorize them, and he would then go on. I was around when he came up with A Place for Your Stuff, which was an absolutely brilliant album about the acquisitiveness of American society. And it was funny. On the surface, it was funny just because he was talking about how you have so much stuff that you end up building a shed to keep your stuff, and how so attached we are to our stuff that when we go on vacation, we have to pack some of our stuff. And then, now we're in Hawaii, and then a friend says, well, let's go over to this other island, and now you have to pack a smaller bag of your stuff to go to the next place, and supply lines are getting longer and more difficult to maintain. But at the heart of it was kind of an indictment of how just addicted we are to shit in America.
Yeah.
And that's another great line. You ever notice that someone else's stuff is shit and your shit is stuff? It's exactly right. It's exactly right. I mean, the man was a genius. My only problem is that later in life he became really bitter, and a lot of his stuff just wasn't funny. It was just mean and kind of ugly. Yeah.
What did he become bitter for?
I don't know. Maybe just the human condition. If I stick around long enough, I'll probably be the same way.
I think you're on the way.
Shut up.
I think you're almost there.
I'm downright jolly at this age, to be honest with you.
Well,
there's very little in this world that pisses me off now, except for driving.
I will say this. People because I've only known you for a certain amount of time, people say that you are much more joyful than you were back then, which may have been due to marriage.
This
or
is what
whatever.
divorce will do for you people.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I actually do view you as kind of a jolly. I don't ever see you pissed off or anything like that. But I mean, maybe it'll happen.
I think secretly I've always been jolly. I just I tried to put this facade out like I was cool and like I was always sort of angry and unapproachable, and that's stupid. Why would you do that? What's the positive of that? I mean, I still don't like people, and I don't want to have anything to do with them, and I'm not lying about that. I mean it sincerely, but I can laugh at stuff now.
Well, if you'll stick to your guns and stay single, you could probably keep that up, the jolliness.
I'm going to die alone, and it'll be like 3 days. 3 days. I'll die like late on a Friday. And round about 7:30 Monday, Valerie's going to be like, could we get someone to drive by Richard's house and see why he's not here? And there you'll find my decomposing, partially eaten body. Because the dogs are going to be hungry,
Yeah, that's disturbing.
That's pretty much the way I'm going to go.
That's good.
I've made my peace with it. It's okay.
As long as whatever makes you happy.
Well, that doesn't make me happy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be thrilled about that.
No, no, that not that.
I'll
part,
be dead, so I won't care.
Whatever makes you happy in the lead up to that, and if that's being single and never getting married.
Why
again,
should I destroy someone else's life? I'm busy destroying my own.
That's a good idea. Yeah. That's a good point. All right. Well, Tony Gump, you got anything before we get up out of here? Because Richard Dixon's got to wake up early.
I got places to go, people to see, things to do.
Just Jawbone Jam, June 21st. Grab a Chubb burger if you can. My favorite burger in the entire world.
Love the Chubb burger. Oh, by the way, June 2nd.
January 6th.
June 2nd, Kerrigan's Irish Pub. The Chubb father is going to be defending his best burger in Birmingham crown.
Really?
Yeah. Is it Kerrigan's? I think it's Kerrigan's.
That's on First Avenue?
I believe that's correct.
North?
Yeah.
Okay, Tony Gump.
Need to be out there.
Yeah, grab a Chubb Father burger. I forget what else I was going to say, but be there at the Jawbone Jam, and I heard there's going to be really cool sponsors there, too.
Vapor Forge.
You've spilled the beans.
Yeah.
You told.
I told everybody.
Has the check cleared?
Yes, it has.
Okay, good.
I actually checked on it. I started talking about it yesterday.
All right.
We do this with John Bird, and you probably know this, and we say, well, do you have final words? And he gives us something prolific, and it's usually just whatever's on the top of his head.
I think what you mean is profound. Prolific would mean a lot. Profound.
Profoundly prolific.
Okay,
is what I mean.
Or prolifically profound.
And so,
as the case may be.
you give us something profoundly prolific, and it could be advice, it could be a message to, Richard Dixon of the past, whatever it is, whatever's on your heart, you just lay it out at this point in the podcast.
I'm an empty vessel. I've been doing this since, 4 o'clock this morning. You want me to come up with words of wisdom? You want me to come up with something brilliant?
Maybe a knock-knock joke.
We need a daily dose of dicks here.
Yeah. Give us the dicks. Bring in the dicks.
You kind of put me on the spot here.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay. So my parents, when they got married, they went on a cruise for their honeymoon. Okay. And they told me this tale about the most amazing lounge act they had ever seen. Apparently what happened is, the orchestra plays and everything, and then there's a break, and they introduce this guy. He's an Australian guy. And he comes out, and he's stark naked. And he's carrying a small table, and on the table is 3 walnuts. And then, using the only really hard thing on his body, he manages to crack these walnuts open.
Wow.
Wild cheers. Huge applause. I'm like, that's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. And they were like, yeah, but it happened. That was our honeymoon. So anyway, their 40th anniversary comes around, and they're going to take a cruise, to kind of rekindle the... And they said, would you like to come along? And I'm like, sure, why not?
You forgot about the story at that point?
Well, it's just a cruise.
Okay.
So we get on this cruise, and lo and behold, it's the same boat that they were on 40 years before. And we go to the show, and sure enough, the band is playing, and now it's rock and roll. And they take a break, and it's the same guy.
Wow.
He comes walking out 40 years later, still stark naked, and he's got a table, and it's got 3 coconuts on it.
Oh.
And once again, using the only really hard thing on his body, he manages to cracks all 3 of these coconuts wide open. Well, my parents are overjoyed. They can't believe that they've seen this again 40 years later, and they go backstage. They're like, we got to see this guy. We got to tell this guy that we saw him then, we saw him now.
Sounds like a bad idea.
We go back there. He's fully dressed now. And my parents were like, my God, this is the most amazing thing we've ever seen. We saw you 40 years ago on our honeymoon, and here we are on our 40th anniversary, and we see you again. He said, but you went from walnuts back then to coconuts now. What happened? And he said, well, my eyes aren't what they used to be.
Oh, my.
There's your words of wisdom, people.
That was okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I actually, it's funny is I thought that was a true story up until we got to the coconuts, and I was like, oh wait, this is a joke. But hey, listen, I'm on. I got it. Jawbone Jam, June 21st. Let's make it happen. It's going to be a good time, and you are obviously welcome on this podcast whenever you want to stop by.
This was enough for me, frankly.
Well, I figured it would.
It was almost too many, frankly.
Yeah.
So,
we'll just for the sake of being friendly, we'll invite you back.
Yeah.
And just be like, well,
and I'll be busy. It'll be great. Yeah. Well, I can't make it at that time. I'm sorry. I have to clip all the really long hairs out of my nose.
Yes.
I've got to polish my dog. I can't make it.
Very important things to do. All right, we're out of here. Until next time, circus.